Hello everyone and welcome to another video. Today we are going to learn about the conditional statements. We also call it decision making statements. So in this video we are going to learn about how programs make decisions. But before that, let's have a look how human make decision. So let's say there is a person who is deciding whether to buy a pair of shoes or not. So human make decision on certain factors, right? So the factor of decision making in this picture is the price. So this person is going to purchase a pair of shoes if the price is within his budget. Okay, so usually we make decision based on certain factors, right? So now let's look how computer programs make decisions. Similarly, the computer also make the decision on different factors using the conditional statements. There are three types of conditional statements in Python: if statement, if else statement, and if-elif-else statement. So what are these type of statements and where we use each of these conditions, right? So let's start with if statement. Where we use if statement? We use if statement when we have only one condition, and if that condition is true we will execute certain code, and if that is not true, there is no other option, right? So let's say a common example could be mobile battery level. If let's say battery level of mobile is 15%, so you are going to display a message if the battery level is less than 20%, then display a message that mobile battery is low, please put it on charge, right? So you can say that if battery level less than 20, and then you will use colon sign here, right? In Python, there are no curly brackets that are used in most of the programming to indicate the block of code. Here we use colon, right? So, and after colon, the code is indented within the block, right? So you can display a print message, print battery low, put it on charge, please. Okay. So this message will only be displayed if the mobile battery is less than 20%, right? Otherwise this message will not be displayed. So let's say after if condition I am going to write an statement program ended, right? Just to realize which block of code is executing and which block of code is not executing, right? So let's run this program. So what is the output? The output is battery low, put it on charge, please, program ended. So this message was displayed because the condition was true, and this message was displayed because this is not associated with if statement. This is outside of the if block, right? So this message has to be displayed regardless of the if condition. So let's say just change the value of battery level. We are going to set it 25. So now battery level less than 20. Now this condition will be false, right? So now this message will not be displayed, but still this line of code will be executed and the program ended message will be displayed. Now let's run this again. See, the battery level message was not displayed, only we got is program ended. So this is how the if statement works. So let's have a look a real life example here. Let's say every one of you have been using a mobile, right? When our mobile battery is low, we get this message, right? This message will only be displayed on your mobile screen if the mobile battery is less than 20%, let's say, right? So this message will display only that condition is true. Otherwise there's no other option, right? Another example could be the fuel level in your vehicle. Okay, so your vehicle is going to display a low fuel message if the fuel percentage is let's say less than 10%. These are the basic examples where the if statement is used, right? So similarly, if you want to run an example about the fuel level, right? Fuel level equals to let's say 20, and you say if fuel level less than 10%, then give me a message, right? Print low fuel. Okay, so this message will only be displayed if the fuel level is less than 10%. Okay, let's say I'm going to place this message here. Now let's run this again. Now we got output that is program ended. So we have two conditions. One is battery level. If battery level is less than 20, give me this message. If fuel level is less than 10, give me low fuel message, right? So both of the condition were false, right? So we just got this message program ended because these conditions were not true, right? If you change the variable fuel level and set a value, let's say 8, okay, so now what will happen, you will get this message, right? Low fuel, program ended. So this condition was true and this block of code was executed. So this is how you can implement different scenarios using the if statement. Now let's move to if else statement, right? We use if else statement when we have two options. So in if statement, we just have one block of code that is associated with the condition. If that condition is true, that block of code will be executed and there is no other option related to this if statement, right? But in if else statement, we have two options. So the common example for if else is pass fail, right? Okay. So let's first have a look on this image. So let's say you are going to apply for the admission in a university for the bachelor's program, right? And university has the policy to conduct the admission test, and anyone who qualifies the admission test will be considered eligible for the admission, and the qualification criteria for the admission test is 50% of the test score, right? So anyone who gets at least 50% or higher, he will be considered eligible and will get the admission, and those who are unable to achieve at least 50%, and they will be considered as fail and will not be eligible for the admission. So how you implement that in programming? Variable marks of a student, let's say we have 55. If marks greater than or equals to 50, then print a message, you are eligible for admission. Okay. If the score is higher than or equals to 50, give a message that you are eligible. If the score is less, then else, print sorry, you are not eligible for the admission. Okay. So here, if a student has achieved anything higher than 50, so he will be considered for the admission. If the test score is less than 50, this message will be displayed. So let's run this code. Marks of the student were 55, so he is considered for the admission. And let's change this variable and assign 45. Now he is not considered for the admission, right? Sorry, you are not eligible for the admission, because the criteria was to at least get 50% in the admission test, right? So anyone who matches the criteria, means who achieved the test score higher than 50% or at least 50%, he will be considered for the admission. And anyone who has not achieved 50%, then he will not be considered for the admission. So this is how you can use if statement and if else statement. Now we have another category, that is if else statement. So before discussing this, let's have a look on this example. So if let's say you have to travel through train from one city to another city and you are going to purchase a train ticket, there are different categories of the ticket prices, right? Let's say for kids under the age of 5 years, there is no ticket. They can travel without ticket, right? For the kids under the age of 12 years, they will get 50% off on the ticket price, right? And for the adult, let's say they have to pay full price for the ticket. And if there is a person who is a senior citizen, means he's older than 60 years, then he has to get old age ticket, right? So this is the example for if else statement, right? So means we have multiple options. When we have more than two options, we will use if else statement, right? So how we implement this scenario in programming? Let's have a look. Let's remove this code. So now we have variable age equals to, let's say, 20. If age less than 5, print message, you can travel without ticket. Okay. Else, if, so we are going to apply another condition. If this condition is not true, then check for the kids under the age 12, right? Age less than 12, print you are under 12 and can and will pay 50% of the ticket price. Okay, so this is the message. Okay, you can give any message, right? And if you want to check for the adult, else if age less than 60, print you are adult, pay full price of the ticket. Okay, else you are senior citizen and can pay 60% price of the ticket. Okay, so there could be any message, right? So after this you can write print done. Okay, so we have a value 20 in the variable age. When we will run this program, it is going to check the age. So this will first check this condition. If the age is less than 5, give this message. If the age is less than 12, give this message. If age is less than 60, give this message. Otherwise this message. If this first condition becomes true, then these condition will never be tested. Okay, if this condition become true, then Python interpreter will skip these code and will move to the last statement that is outside of the block, right? So this will be executed in any way, right? Because this is not part of any condition, right? So let's run this program. So we got message, you are adult, pay full price for the tickets, because the age variable has value 20, and this done is displayed after the execution of all these lines of code, right? Because this is not part of any if statement, so this has to be displayed in any situation, right? Okay, so let's change this value to, let's say, 70. Okay, so now what will happen is it is going to give you are senior citizen and can pay 60% of the ticket, right? And this done is the indication that this is outside of the if statement, right? So now let's run it again by changing the value to, let's say, 2 years. If there is a kid of age 2 years, now let's say what message we get, you can travel without ticket. Okay, so these are different scenarios where we can use if statement or if else statement or if else if statements, right? So based on the conditions, how many options you have to execute or look into, based on that you can use if statements, right? Okay, now another example of if else statement could be the grade of a student based on the marks, right? Let's say marks are equals to 56. So you decide if marks greater than 80, okay, print grade A, else if marks greater than 70, print grade B, else if marks greater than 60, print grade C, else let's say marks greater than 50, print grade D, else print you are fail. Okay, so this is another example of where we use if else if statement. Means when we have multiple options or we have multiple conditions, right? So based on the multiple conditions we have to decide the grade. So when we run this program, we are going to get a value grade D, right? Because the marks were 56 and this condition was false because the marks were not greater than 80, and this condition was also false because the marks were not greater than 70, and this condition was also false because the marks were not greater than 60. So this message was not displayed, and it again checked this condition, right? Marks greater than 50, so print grade D. So this message was displayed grade D. So let's change the value to, let's say, 85. Okay, what we will get is grade A. So when this condition is true, the Python interpreter is going to skip all these conditions. It will not check other conditions, right? So it will move outside of the if block, right? Maybe you can display a message after this, print execution completed, right? So this message will be displayed once the flow comes out of the if block. This message is to be displayed on the screen, right? Regardless of the condition, right? Whatever the message is going to display from this, it has no effect on this line of code, right? So the message is grade A, execution completed, right? Okay, so this is how you can apply different if statements based on what scenario you are going to implement, right? So in today's session we discussed different categories of conditional statements, and we also saw some real life examples where we use if statement and where we use if else statement and where we use if else if and else statement, right? So in the next session we will discuss about the nested if statements.